guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-filled gripe for Caraval by Stephanie Garber. As I said, this video will have spoilers in it, so if you've not read this book, go ahead and chalk up my spoiler-free review, which will be linked on the screen. So, as I said in my review, this book disappointed me on every level. I just feel that this book was so bad for me because it failed to execute in ways that I know that it could have. I know that this could have been a very good book for me, and it just wasn't over and over again. And I feel like that's because it used a lot of magical circus tropes that I've seen time and time again in these kind of magical, fantastical circus or, you know, chocolate factory or whatever. Those kinds of environments have similar tropes with these legendary, you know, creators and stuff like that. And I feel like they weren't really nuanced or changed or made original in any way in this book. And then we have all of that combined with just kind of mediocre writing that I feel is trying too hard and just non-existent characters. Just the most one-dimensional characters, and I was just disappointed completely. So, first off, just from the beginning, and this just continued to get worse, we have the first villain set up as their dad. And the only thing that makes him a villain, not that you need more than this, but what he is he's a child abuser. He beats his children. And he beats the other child to punish the other one. That's it. Okay. Anything else? No, that's it. That's it. That's all he is just this, like, weird villain archetype. And there's really nothing I hate more about building villains than just having people just be these, like, weird archetypes of, like, I'm gonna pick an evil thing and make a person the personification of that evil thing. It's like, that's so lazy. Like, you can make a villain so interesting and you don't need them to be sympathetic. I am not saying you need a sympathetic villain at all. I think it's incredibly hard, if not impossible, to make somebody who beats their loved ones to be sympathetic. But you can make them nuanced, you can make them more complex, you can make them interesting. And this character was none of those things. He was just a means to an end, and just like an antagonist for the sake of having an antagonist, and it just really made no sense. So from the get-go, I'm just like, what is this? Then we have everything taking off when Julian helps Tella take Scarlet, and we have Scarlet just ending up with Julian, Tella nowhere in sight, and right after she wakes up from being abducted by them, she's already kind of attracted to Julian. Like, she's already kind of falling for him. You have the thing in the water where he cuts her dress, which happens within the first 50 pages of the book, and so they're already having this, like, weird chemistry bond thing, and it's like, stop. Like, this guy just helped to abduct you, and you're, like, all attracted to him. Not to mention, you caught him making out with your sister, or doing more than that. Like, and you're engaged with somebody that you think you're, like, really into. Like, I just, what? What? So at the beginning, when that started happening, I was like, what is this? I didn't sign up for an insta-love / insta-infatuation story. I signed up for, like, a sisterly bond, and I'm seeing none of that. Like, just because they're, like, sort of having this weird protective one another thing because their dad beats the other one, whatever, like, that was not enough for me to really believe their sisterly bond before they get separated and Scarlet has to track her down. Like, it just wasn't enough. So in the place of this sisterly bond, we have this weird insta-love thing where she keeps thinking about him and she's, like, obsessed with him, and very quickly we already have her having to choose between him and her sister, and mostly choosing him, or choosing fear, but choosing him, and just like, what? We have them getting to the circus, and it's not. Like, that's one of the things too, is I was expecting a magical circus. I didn't need it to be the night circus at all. I was expecting it to not be as wonderful and beautiful as the night circus already. Like, I had my expectations at a reasonable level for this book. And then we don't even really have a circus. We have this island, which is kind of weird, and we had them staying mostly in, like, an inn tavern thing, which is not circusy in the slightest, and we barely have any performances. We don't, like, we have this whole thing of, like, oh, this is a magical competition, and we're having all these competitors, and we're having these performances, and it's all a game, and blah blah blah. It's like, well, where are these performances? Except for, like, oh, the whole thing's a performance, but, like, you don't have any kind of, like, circusy gimmick, really. We have a few people giving them the rules and stuff, but that's it. We have a lot of shops. Like, there's a lot of shopping happening in actual standing buildings, not in tents. Like, the most circusy thing in the whole thing was Nigel's fortune-telling tent, which was my favorite part of the whole story. So it's like, where are all these magical things? And we have like, oh, you know, this bridge moves, and oh, this weird like guy selling cider, but it didn't feel like a circus. It just felt like kind of a magical enchanted town, or like you crossed over into fairyland or something. But it was supposed to be a circus, and it wasn't. Also, the way that description was used in this was just, that's where I feel like it was just trying so hard to be beautiful writing, and it just drew me out of the writing and the story because it was just trying so hard. The whole thing with Scarlet seeing emotions was just a way to make the writing flowery, because we didn't have her seeing emotions being a thing at all. Like, it wasn't an important plot point. She wasn't, like, I thought maybe she'd end up being, like, magical, and so it's gonna be, like, magical competitors and stuff, and, like, you know, she's gonna be facing against another competitor, that kind of thing, like a competition that way between, like, two people. No, she just sees these colors, but it helps with the writing and making it flowery. Great. Like, the whole way of describing things, like, it was orange, like the setting sun of my heart, and it's just like, what are these descriptions? And then it would happen over and over. It was blue, like midnight and desire. It's just like, what? Like, that's not, just using like a ton of metaphors, I guess, doesn't make it like beautiful flowery writing. Like, you cannot fake beautiful writing. Like, not everybody is gonna have this like magical, eclectic writing like Laini Taylor or some of those people. Like, not everyone can do that, okay? So like, don't try and then fail because you want it to be this beautiful, eclectic writing. And I would love it to be, because this kind of story works with that kind of writing, but this kind of writing failed. Speaking of competitors, we have this magical circus and this whole competition thing, and everyone's trying to fight to find Tella. Except for you really don't see the whole competition or the competitors. Like, yes, you know that they exist, but mostly all the competitors you saw were actually actors, and the competitors you only saw when they were ransacking her room, and it's like, shouldn't we have this threat of other people finding Tella and, like, these other competitors and whatever, like, except for no. It's like nobody else existed, just Scarlet and Julian trying to find Tella. Like, that was it. That was it. Where are all these competitors? Where are all these other, like, bystanders and everything? Like, sometimes you had, like, a crowd here and there, but, like, not really. Like, that was never mentioned. If all these people are trying to find this wish, you don't think there'd be a lot more people in your way when you're trying to do this stuff? People just following you around because they're trying to get what they know you are also trying to get because it's your family member? Like, where are these competitors? Oh, also with the writing, we have Scarlet being able to infer people's emotions based on really minute, like, movements or facial expressions where you wouldn't be able to infer that much information. So instead of being like, oh, he suspiciously cut his eyes to the side, it should be like, he suspiciously cut his eyes to the side in a way that let me know that he was actually hiding the truth about his mother. Like, even though that wasn't something that happened, like, that's the kind of descriptions you would have over and over and over again, and it's like, characters can't, like, just deduce that much information because of one tiny movement. Like, that's not how it works. Like, your protagonist isn't omniscient. Like, that's not how it works. And yet, we have her inferring these things about people, but also have Scarlet being, like, the most naive person ever. Like, just believing everything she sees and taking it at face value over and over and over again. Like, it's not even like it just happens once. Like, at the beginning of the circus, I'd understand. It's like, okay, you don't quite know it's a game yet, you don't quite know people are trying to deceive you, but, like, you're told and you're being shown that people are deceiving you and everything, and you still believe, like, everything you're told or everything, like, your first gut instinct, and it's just like, what? What? You've been told this is a game from, like, the beginning, and that people are going to try to deceive you, and that people are out to, like, basically get you, and yet you're going to believe, like, everything you hear. From people you don't know. From strangers. What? And I can take stubborn and impulsive protagonists. I cannot take incredibly naive, for no reason protagonists that, like, will do things even though they've been shown time and time again that that's not how the way the world works. Like, it's so irritating. And then we have this whole theme of family, which I mentioned earlier of, like, there's a sister bond that we don't even really get to see because it doesn't really seem like these sisters are bonded. Like we said, Tella doesn't really seem to care that much about Scarlet, and Scarlet knows she doesn't really care about Tella as much as we are supposed to believe, or as much as she thinks. Like, she wants other things for her life beyond just, like, protecting Tella. And that's important, that's great. But we have these, like, familial bond ties things multiple times with different characters, and you just don't feel that or sense that, or that doesn't have any kind of importance. So for example, we find out that Legend was in love with their grandmother. This grandmother that's only mentioned a few times in that she told them stories about Caraval. Okay, so why is he supposedly taking vengeance on all of her ancestors when they're not even really that bonded to her grandmother? Like, it's not even like she was really part of their life. It's not like she saw them off. It's not like she loves them so much. It's not like they just, like, love their grandmother so much. Like, she seemed like a very kind of almost absent, detached character from them anyway. Like, she was just there to tell them stories about Caraval and then be the villain's motivation, kind of. Like, she served no other purpose. So they weren't really even bonded to her or tied to her. So why would he care? And why would she care if he was taking vengeance on her through her descendants? She doesn't care. She's not even really there. Like, what? And then we also have, like, Julian being the brother of Legend too, and it's just like, what? And I am fine. I have a history of liking paranormal romances with, like, vampires and supernatural creatures or people that are, like, way older, whatever. It's a line and gray boundary that I'm willing to dabble in and make excuses for or whatever. Like, it's problematic content that I can work around, you know, it doesn't bother me. But in this case, it was like, this doesn't make sense. Because we have Julian now, she finds out that he's probably, like, her grandmother's age, if not older, and they're like, it's cool, and she's still referring to him as, like, a boy. He's like, I haven't aged. It's like, yeah, but you've been alive. Like, you're not a boy. Like, you're not 17 or however old he's supposed to be. Like, you're not. Like, that's been proven that you're not. So, like, even after she found that out, she's still like, he's not the boy I thought he was. Yeah, like, yeah, he's not a boy. He's a grown-ass man. Like, he's not a boy. And their whole just relationship, like I said, was just ridiculous. And them just, like, falling for one another and, like, giving each other's lives up and blah, blah, blah. And her wanting to save him. And who am I gonna choose, him or sister? And it's like, yeah, because you guys had this huge sisterly bond thing. And that's the whole thing that this thing is hinging on, is your guys' bond. But you're like, who am I gonna choose to bring back? This guy I've known for, like, 4 days. Or my sister who I love so much. Like, what? And her sister legitimately did die. And had to have her wish her back to life. Like, girl, what? And, like, nobody in the circus, like, actually dies, but we don't really know how that makes any sense. Like, that's just how it is. Like, I like my magic having a price, and maybe in later books it's supposed to, and this is supposed to come up, but, like, you can't wait that long for that kind of, like, magical payoff, you know, everything coming with a price kind of thing. Like, so people just get to be brought back to life. No, these just familial tie things don't make sense. Like, so many things are just dropped in just to be kind of convenient, and a lot of them are just, like, archetypes for this little subgenre of, you know, magical circus subgenre thing. You know, we have this, like, magical proprietor who has forgot what it's like to be human and has his vengeance plot against this girl that never loved him, and, like, what? And, like, oh, and it's all just a game, none of it's real, and he was really trying to help her the whole time, and, like, what? It's very, like, Wizard of Oz, you know, Willy Wonka, all of that kind of thing. Like, these are things that have been done before, and, like, the whole people being paid to fall in love with, like, the main character, and it wasn't a game to me, like, that's a trope that's common, you know, like, oh, well, he was paid to do that, but, like, actually, no, I really did love you. And, like, that trope is super common, and I saw it coming from a mile away, and it was just like, this again? This again? The whole thing, I feel like, was just overly simplified, missed the mark. Like I said in my review, I feel like the writing would have worked better for middle grade. Like, it just felt more middle grade. Like, not that that's a bad thing, I just think it would have worked better in that genre, and then not even have the romance. Like, if her and Julian were just friends, that would have been fine. That would have been great. I would have liked that a lot. But it was just too little, and also too much at times. Like, it tried too hard. The characters were overly simplified and had no character development and had little to no motivations for their actions and were just one-dimensional, and the romance was lame, and it wasn't a circus. So everything that it aimed to be based on what was on the tin, it did not achieve. Then we have all of that, and then we have this lame cliffhanger ending. Like, this whole thing with, like, because the whole time I was like, yeah, where's her mom? Like, this whole mom keeps being brought up, and it's like, ooh, now that I've done with my part, like, what do you need to do for your mother, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. And, like, oh, that was Legend, and now Legend's, like, sort of doing something with Tella. It's just like, no. I could not care less about that lame cliffhanger. So yeah, I was deeply disappointed with this book. And I didn't even go into it with high expectations, really. Like, I knew it wasn't going to compare to the Night Circus. It's like people comparing things to Harry Potter. You know going in, it's not going to be the next Harry Potter. I knew this was not going to be the next Night Circus. But I thought it was going to be its own fun, fantastical circus. And it was not for me. So yeah, I will not be continuing with this series. No. So comment below, let me know what you thought of Caraval. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys soon. Bye.